Back to the line. This week we learned that federal officials are looking at new potential locations for releasing Mexican wolves back into the wild. There's been a heated debate in New Mexico and Arizona about the wolf reintroduction program for many years. And Julianne, your paper, the Santa Fe Reporter, had a great story last week about the status of the Mexican wolf reintroduction program. Catch us up. What's going on here?
Well, really, you've got a lot of resistance coming from the state governments, the state of Arizona and the state of New Mexico, where all the territory where these wolves should be living. They're both really not interested in the Mexican wolf recovery program. They're really hostile and they're being obstructionist to the program. And the federal government has the authority and I would say has the responsibility and obligation to make this work. Human beings caused wolves to become endangered, and human beings ought to fix it. And if the government of the state, Arizona and New Mexico, doesn't want to do it, the feds have the authority and they could. They've told our reporter, Elizabeth Miller, who's been covering this issue, on the record, several people from Fish and Wildlife Service have acknowledged that they don't have to play ball with the state. It's encouraged, but if the state is not going to let them release wolves, they don't really need permission. So I think some people are waiting for the feds to really take that next step and use the authority that they have.
That's right. And meanwhile, Dee Dee, this gap that Julianne's talking about between what the feds would like to see happen with reintroduction and it not happening has amounted to a problem in the wolf population. That gap is very problematic.
Well, it seems that it means fewer are released because of the opposition, and then more are held in captivity, and they don't thrive as well as in captivity, and it's become small. The numbers are smaller, and they're inbreeding, and then their survival is questioned. But I was very interested in the federal response. I mean, New Mexico and Arizona game commissions have been actively hostile to the people like Ted Turner, who have offered to even house some of the wolves on his property, not release them, but just house them there. And this has been, you know, just a red flag to some of the cattle ranchers.
That's right.
And they have come out to do anything they can to kill this endangered species program. So, I mean, it's, you know, I think that the Fish and Wildlife should stand up for what they are supposed to be doing with endangered species. It's a very bureaucratic organization, though.
I couldn't even imagine.
So,
and I wonder if there's reluctance, you know, because of the coming change on the federal level, you know, if Fish and Wildlife takes a bold stance right now, you know, are they going to regret that when the administration changes? I can understand, you know, why there's reluctance there, but you know what Dee Dee said about the genetics, it's really at emergency crisis level where there's more genetic diversity in the captive wolf population, those wolves that are waiting to be released into the wild. They could really help the population that we have now survive.
Exactly right. Janice, we've had losses. That's the big thing about the numbers from last year. The state had been doing okay with wolf population. It was holding steady, not growing, but holding, but we've had drops. And some folks are saying, like, the new ruling that said farmers and ranchers could in fact protect their animals and property from depredation by shooting wolves. Now we have some squishy other numbers where 11 or 12 wolves are unaccounted for. Their collars are missing, they're not they're doing the radio transmission. And folks are thinking, you know, the ranchers are shooting these poor wolves. What do you make of that? Or are farmers in a tough spot here and ranchers in a tough spot?
Well, I think they're in a very tough spot. But quite frankly, I think the federal government is doing a terrible job of any of these programs. And let me just start with the basic concept. We have a border with Mexico. On the southern side of that border, it's a wolf. On the northern side, it's an endangered species. How does that happen, and how do you reconcile that? That's the first thing. The second thing is in that wildlife corridor, which is on the border of New Mexico and Arizona, the Game and Fish Department have been more like stormtroopers. They have invaded people's homes, they've held people at gunpoint, and this is about reintroducing the wolves. And I'm telling you, families do not see this because they get it that we're all going to live together. Now, You could argue, since many of the area ranchers have the GPS
That's right.
signals.
That's right.
And you know, one is that what I know about farmers and ranchers is you take care of your animals, they take care of you. You take care of the land, it takes care of you, and that extends to endangered species as well. But are we doing a better job by doing this to this wolf population? They weren't born with GPS collars.
Right.
and so, I wander on here, but the genetic basis, our intervention has actually worked to our detriment.
That's right.
So I'm not quite sure what the answer is, but I have absolutely no faith in the federal government doing this.
Basically, as Julianne mentioned, all the wolves out there now are related. Basically, they're all genetically related to each other, Tom, and it's a difficulty.
Well, we talk about the British family being related to this degree, and we often make very uncomplimentary comments. So we want smart wolves. We don't just want gray wolves, we want smart wolves.
That's right.
Inbreeding reduces their chance of survival.
Absolutely.
That's really the problem.
Right.
Yes.
You know, and again, I bring this again, Tom Garrity. This was this gap that has proven to be a problem now. It's almost like you wait a year or a season, a birthing season. If you're not keeping up with it, something's going to happen. So do we play catch up now? Is our state in a place to accommodate more wolves politically, culturally? I mean, you know what I mean? It's a tough fight. I know.
Politically, culturally, you know, I think it's really, you have two types of communications. You have the urban communications, and then you have the rural communications. You know, on the urban side, we have, and I'm going to slam both sides equally, you have the urban cowboys who think that they know exactly how to manage a ranch, and you have the armchair environmentalists who say on the other side, say, no, here's what we need, you know, from a numbers perspective.
That's right.
And then you have the reality of what's actually happening out west.
Yeah.
Okay. Quote unquote out west. Okay. You have clearly different agendas between the state and between the feds, but you have nobody who's really out there getting a true common sense kind of, you know, trying to find that middle ground between ranchers who have legitimate concerns and between environmentalists who have legitimate concerns as well. There's nobody out there right now that's really trying to find that middle ground, and I think until you have the middle ground that's found, you're still going to find collars without wolves, and you're going to have a lot of controversy because, you know, nothing is, you know, you're not expanding the gene pool, so to speak.
You know, Julianne, this idea that you could, as a rancher, have the coordinates for the GPS for these wolves, it sounds great in theory. You get to look at your little computer screen, a wolf's coming on your property, go get your gun, go take care of your animals and your business. I'm wondering if there's a perverse incentive, however. If you are not into wolves at all, you can use this GPS system to track them down and shoot them.
That's an interesting theory. I mean, one thing that we know that the feds changed the rules to allow sort of more, you know, rancher action on the fly, but they also say that no one's done that. And you know, the unaccounted for wolves, of course, we're not really sure, but no rancher has reported to the feds, hey, you gave me the authority and I got one of those suckers last night.
That's right.
So that's interesting. I think what we're going to look for here moving forward are two things. Cross-fostering of pups could happen as soon as this spring. If the feds are able to find a den where the mother has given birth to natural pups and they can throw a couple extra in there, that could be a good thing.
There's a window, isn't there, of time?
There is, and you know, the last time they tried this, the mother that they had targeted actually moved her pups and they couldn't find her to give her the extra pups. The other thing that's going to happen is that
Wild animals, why do they do that?
the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service is supposed to come up with another sort of revision to the big program plan. That estimate is it's due out in November 2017.
Okay.
So I don't think this is going to be solved tomorrow.
Yeah, minute left, common ground. Is it possible, Senator, on this? You've been at this yourself for a lot of years, too.
This is New Mexico's iconic animal.
Yeah.
This is the
lobo.
Yeah.
This is a lobo. And we ought to be able to come to some common ground, but I don't see that happening anytime soon.
Well, and sometimes the agencies say some of the most ridiculous things to farmers and ranchers. One, and I can remember sitting in Silver City, and the agency came in and said, well, if you have an animal with a broken leg, you have to go in and pull it out. And it was back in a canyon. Not practical. Yeah. On the other side, all of our intervention, our human intervention, has not helped the wolves. And what I know about most farmers and ranchers with the GPS is it gives them the options to actually move their stock rather than the other way around. I don't know, farmers and ranchers love animals as a basic need, but I mean, they also have to make a living.
Right.
And so if they can move their stock, they do that.
Sure. I'm glad you get that in. Absolutely. Any common ground here?
Yeah, actually, I thought
Possible?
Janice's comments were spot on. I mean, I wasn't aware that ranchers had that ability. I think that there's a whole rancher side that is not being told, and it's not being told accurately,
Fair enough.
and that's shame on the cattlemen growers, Cattle Growers Association. They have not done a good job in telling their story to the general public, and they have a great story, a very positive story to tell. And silence, well, silence means that your side is not going to be heard, and as a result, we're here talking about survival of the Mexican gray wolf as opposed to the survival of the American rancher.
Good point there. Up next, we discuss former Secretary of State Diana Duran's request to modify the terms of her probation.